Jati's Wager, Windtide Book 2. Written by Jonathan Nevair. Narrated by Skyler Morgan. One. Ship, Carmora, P. Frigate. Location, Tarkasi Sector, Outer Rim. Year, 3058, second span. The little rat was in the cargo hold, the burly engineer said to the captain, who stood in front of the holofield of the local star group, enjoying the free-stock produce from Quitrine. The machinist glowered at Ilo as she resisted his brutish grip, washing it down with a bottle of Carton. His eyes narrowed. From the case set aside for the trade drop on Haroon, the good vintage. Ilo tugged harder. "Quit it, you freeloader," he said, pulling back. "You're caught." Ilo sneered, revealing deep crimson stains on her bared teeth. She didn't know what Carton was, but it went down easy and emboldened her nerve. "Don't be so angry, Calm down, will you? There's nowhere to go. They have you." "Shut up, Jerub. I know what I'm doing. We're trapped on a ship in FTL. It's not about that. They don't get to own me." Jerub sighed, his long exhale swirling in the shared space of Ilo's internal monologue. She smiled. Her longtime imaginary friend had no choice but to sit back and let this play out. "All right, but it's going to make the situation worse. For him, maybe." Ilo stomped on the engineer's shin. He yelped in pain. She took advantage of the surprise jolt to break his grip on her smaller teenage wrist by twisting its weak point between the fingers and thumb. The machinist bent over to grab his leg, and Ilo, cocky from a bellyful of Carton, homed in on his head. No, it'll make things more." Ilo sprung, her right hand and the remaining fingers of her left wrapped around the engineer's neck. She drove a knee up into his nose. "Gore scum!" The machinist teetered. She sent a kick to his ribs that laid him out on the floor, groaning. "Well, old tot, I don't like to see anyone use violence unless it's in the cause of justice. But in your case..." Ilo spun, fists clenched, ready for the next attack. The captain stood, arms folded, with a smirk on their face. They were huge. "I don't think you can take them, Ilo had learned to read people in the cold and oxygen-deprived streets of Tarkasi 9. She and Jerub classified everyone who passed through the forgotten outpost at the edge of the arm using a self-invented ranking system. "They're a no-go, 8-pointer, Physique, scars. The eyes don't show any uncertainty. They almost seemed amused." Ilo nodded to Jerub inside her head. "I liked the hair, though." Ilo did too. The lavender-dyed hair, tied in a long ponytail, fell to the middle of the captain's back. Their chin and cheekbones had the strength of rock slabs tossed together by a giant's hands. Green eyes simmered against flax-colored skin. The face, hatched with wrinkles, spoke of life at late middle age. Underneath a deep blue tank top, their bulky muscles had lost none of their inner strength, despite the wear and tear of time and experience. Ilo's eyes went to the red design on their bulging forearm. "A Legion tattoo, All bets off. Talk time or run." Ilo stood, panting. Her scrawny physique couldn't match someone that size, not without the element of surprise. As scrappy as she was, her presence didn't physically intimidate enemies. This situation was a non-starter. She eyed the portal. Through the door stood freedom, temporarily. She might make it into the ship's labyrinth. But then what? Duck into the venting system? That only worked if they didn't know you were on board. It was time to talk. "Not a good idea, old tot," the captain said, and nodded at the door. "I'm not a tot. I'm 16. Ilo brushed sweaty scarlet bangs out of her blue eyes. And that doesn't make sense. Tots aren't old. The captain smiled, heavy crow's feet creasing the golden skin around their eyes. The gesture softened the atmosphere in the nav room. It's a figure of speech, firecracker. But in this case, it does fall short of logic. They shut off the holoscreen with a wave of their paw-like hand. So what are you then, besides a stowaway? Ilo glanced out the window pane overlooking the docking bay. A group of workers milled about, stacking cargo and making repairs to flight pods. A second portal, opposite the one the engineer dragged her through, led to stairs descending to the tarmac. If she slipped out and evaded the crew, she might gain access to the ship's internal passageways. A spacecraft this size had to have enough random supplies lying about for her to scavenge until they dropped out of FTL to arrive wherever they were heading. Ilo had no idea where that might be, and she didn't care so long as it was light years from Tarkasi 9. She'd be a hunted stowaway for the duration of the trip, but hiding and stealing were what she and Jareb did best. They called it survival. No chance, Shut up, Jareb, I'm thinking. You picked the wrong ship if you're trying to get away from trouble. The captain smiled. That's exactly where we're heading. Guess I'll be right at home then, Ilo said. She added a mocking smile as punctuation. Where did you learn to fight like that? The captain raised their fists and shifted their legs, mimicking her fighting stance with surprising accuracy. Ilo had never seen hands so large and strong in her life. Be careful, I wouldn't tell them anything. None of your business. So Lazi would be proud of her for that leg combination. The old war vet turned proprietor of the Tip of the Beyond taught her how to work larger opponents down to her height through strategic body targets. Each impact forced them to involuntarily bend forward or back, exposing vital points. The tactical sequences were far more effective than struggling to reach up or extend an arm or leg that would lessen the potential force and damage and leave you open to a counterattack. Too bad she wouldn't be able to tell the bartender about it. Solazi was dead going on 3 months now. The cough, the bane of the veteran's body, carried through exposure to the malignant reaper gas on Yaqui in the Patent War, finally got the better of them. You move well. The captain let go of the ready position and relaxed. Someone taught you tactics fit to scale, and did a good job of it. The engineer grunted and rose to a knee. His eyes went from the pool of red dripping to the floor from his broken nose to Ilo. She flipped him the bird and smirked. Damn vagrants, he muttered between bloody sniffs. We're good, Viz, the captain said. Go down to the med room and have Arira plug that nose. The machinist pinched his nostrils and, with his head leaning back, started towards the portal. Ilo feigned a punch as he passed. The engineer flinched. You're not making this any better, Gotta make life fun, Jareb, no matter the cost. The motto had served Ilo and her imaginary friend well for the last 8 years alone on the depressing streets of the isolated moonbase. Now they were off that shithole, and where were they going? Ilo thought they were on the road to freedom, headed out into the big wide world of the Sagarm. Instead, they were going to the brig. Well, you've gotten yourself into a good old-fashioned dilemma. The captain walked to a control panel below the panorama glass and adjusted the dial. And I don't approve of stowaways. Ilo stole a peek out the window. At the end of a row of flight pods, a K-speeder leaned against the stack of cargo shells. The thugs on the moonbase used these to patrol the streets. Its flashy orange and blue custom paint job beamed against the otherwise dreary landscape of the bay. You're not thinking what I think you're thinking, are you? I am. You've never driven one. How hard could it be? She'd watched the patrollers work the small hoverbikes for years. She'd been chased by them and caught twice. Other than a red push-button ignition, Isla wasn't sure of the control switches on the grips. She knew the twisting handle on the right side throttled the engine. I could use an extra hand in the mess and a runner down there. The captain thumbed a hand towards the window, indicating the docking bay. You work, you get a ride. And food. Pretty good deal, kiddo. My name is Ilote, she said, including the suffix to express her gender identity. Even in a tense situation like this, it wasn't unusual. If you offered someone your name for the first time in the arm, you did it on social instinct. Plus, she wanted to put a halt to the captain's inane monikers. Stop calling me kid. I'm 16, I think, she thought. The captain nodded. Good for you, firecracker. I like your style. A finger pointed at her in mock blaster fashion. Welcome aboard, Ilo the stowaway from Tarkasi 9. You're on the Carmora, by the way. And my name is Jati. Jati? I think you were wrong about this ship. Ilo thought back to their argument at the shuttle hub off Tarkasi 9. 2 spacecraft were in port, the Carmora and a nondescript freighter. The weapon systems on the Carmora's hull gleamed in the hazy light of Tarkasi, a nearby gas giant. A classic combat vessel from the Patent War, it had been through an impressive refit job. Ilo liked the ship. A little of herself ran in its battered and bruised, yet militant exterior. Jareb disagreed. What else was new? Jareb always disagreed, as if he existed solely for that purpose. He argued for the freighter. Better to take a vessel with more cargo and fewer passengers, less chance of being seen and discovered. Plus, weapons meant defense. That pointed to conflict. Ilo overrode him. She chose the Carmora, betting on a cargo runner with no allegiance to either side in the Tide War. Plus, so Lazi always said, they didn't make ships like that anymore. If something went wrong in space, you'd want to be on an old P-class frigate. Those spacecraft could handle anything. And so Ilo ducked through the security on the orbit hub, diverted to the maintenance area, and got into a cargo stack heading for the frigate. Easy peasy. If she'd known it'd be a breeze, she would have done it months ago. The captain leaned back against the control panel and rubbed their chin with a contrived gesture. Now, let's see. Tonight is Hiranese noodles and swamp boar medallions, if I'm not mistaken. It'll be delicious, so long as Viz can still smell well enough to season it with that nose you smashed. It's his family's recipe. Food. Real food. We could eat and not have to hide. No, Jareb. They'll hand us off to child services as soon as we make port. Plus, I don't want anyone's help. Ilo thumbed the lucky rim wedge in her pocket, the one she'd never spend. It sounds like a job offer, It's a trick, just another liar out for themselves, like all the others. Not if this is Jati. It's not. Look at them, Jareb. Jati's a general, the leader of the People's Army, the one who broke the Monopoly and Hammett alliance. This one looks plain broke. We'll call it a wash with Viz. No apology needed. The captain waved a hand. I can tell you're eager to move on from T9. That standard issue orange jumper's seen a lot of action. Getting a bit small on you. They turned back to the window to observe the activity below. Can't say I blame you. Been like that for far too long out here. At the tip of the beyond. They turned to face her and smiled. They know. Ilo backstepped toward the door to the docking bay. I know. If this is Jati and we're on a PA ship. Ilo dashed to the portal. Out of the corner of her eye, the captain reached for the control board to lock the exit. Her arm extended, and she touched the screen on the wall. The door opened. "Code yellow, folks." The captain's voice bounced around the docking bay as Ilo drove through and onto the staircase balcony. "A bottle of Carton to whoever can catch her. No harm, please, but watch yourselves. She's feisty. Viz is down in the med room getting patched up after round 1. A lanky crew member in oil-stained blue overalls threw down their tools at the nearest pod and cranked their head around, searching. They spotted Ilo. With her crimson hair and orange jumper, she made for an easy mark. The person ran for the staircase. Several other maintenance workers stopped, repairing a flight pod, and made their way across the tarmac. "Trapped eye. I told you." I stole a glance back through the window pane. Stone-slabbed cheeks pushed upward in a smile. They winked at her. What is it with them? She thought. Footsteps rattled the staircase cage. The worker, their skin a sandy beige, climbed the steps. Spiky yellow hair bobbed up and down. They took them 2 at a time, their violet eyes intent on nabbing her and the bottle of Carton. Ilo peered over the banister. The tarmac under the balcony lay 15 feet below. It's too high. Who cares? She jumped over the railing and landed hard. Her ankle twisted and something popped. Adrenaline pumped through her veins and overrode the pain. She sprinted towards a set of parked pods. By the 3rd stride, she was hobbling. Every step got more difficult as the ankle gave in to the injury and refused to take the weight of her leg. 3 crew members approached from across the tarmac, running faster now that they'd spotted the source of the commotion. "Over here," one of them pointed in Ilo's direction. The lead runner unholstered a small taser at their hip and aimed it at her. "Watch out, On it." Tasers were nothing. Ilo had learned how to evade their electro darts by the time she was 12 years old, running snatch and grabs with the other street kids. All you needed was to... Ilo's calf on her injured leg went numb as the dart nicked her flesh. She stumbled and fell onto the floor of the docking bay. Her cheek smashed against the unforgiving tarmac. Searing pain shot down her face as her skin peeled away. She shuffled across the ground, but the ankle had lost the fight against injury. With the added shock from the taser, the leg wouldn't respond. The hazmat alarm, to the left." Ilo lifted her bloody cheek and turned. A body's length away, at waist height, the red and white stripes of an emergency panel stood out on the ship's white wall. She bent her good leg, dug her heel in, and pushed off and up, lunging for the lever. The 2 remaining fingers and thumb of her left hand grabbed the handle. She pulled. Sirens blared. Air rushed around her. Her lungs seized, desperate to inhale oxygen as hangar jets purged the existing atmosphere and replaced it with sterilized emergency air from the reserve tanks. She choked in the temporary vacuum. The room spun and her eyeballs pulled into her skull. A misty haze filled her vision as the 2 temperature currents collided. Oxygen returned and she collapsed, inhaling large gulps. The spinning room stabilized and the pressure rebalanced. "Now what, I think you know." Ilo edged her way down the wall towards the far side of the bay under cover of the mist. "She's here somewhere," a voice yelled over the blaring sirens. Her pursuers were close, no more than 10 feet away in the fog. Ilo pushed on as quietly as possible. She made out the bulbous bows of the flight pods as she edged along the wall. She counted 3. That meant it should be... "You are a determined little maniac. You know that, She managed an interior smile through the pain in her ankle. "Come on, Jerub. You're loving this. Don't deny it." "And where do you intend to get to in a flying speeder inside a docking bay?" "That's the future, Jerub." "Yeah, like 2 minutes from now. For me, that's a lifetime." An orange and blue glow tinged the mist ahead. I edged over, and the K-speeder emerged into view. The siren stopped. Someone had deactivated the emergency shutdown. "Okay, firecracker. You've made your point," the captain's voice sounded over the loudspeaker. "I'm impressed. It's been entertaining, but enough's enough. Come on out. We'll call it a truce. You can have all the swamp boar you want." Ilo pulled up and, balancing on one leg, got up and onto the K-speeder's seat. She pushed the ignition button. The motor revved to life. The engine's roar boomed off the walls of the docking bay like a furious monster bellowing from deep in a cave. "Whoa," she thought. Someone had dropped some serious ARM credits to turn the rider into one special, supercharged, custom machine. She fiddled with the switches on the handles, and the bike bucked forward. You'll get us killed." She twisted the throttle. They shot up and away. The speeder broke through the layer of lingering mist and rose into the clear air of the docking bay. Ilo leaned the steering column to the right and zoomed across the interior. The window pane with the captain approached dead ahead. Slow down." She pushed a button next to the handle. The speeder bucked and almost sent her over the handlebars. She tried another one, and the speeder accelerated. The captain's eyes went wide. A line of buttons on the left handle caught her eye. "Push something." "I can't." She couldn't reach a red switch made for an index finger. She didn't have one. Her hand slid over the grip to push it with a ring finger, but without support, the bike tipped left and almost flipped. She couldn't let go, but she couldn't hang on, not unless she slowed down, and fast. "We're accelerating, This isn't good." Her sweaty bangs lifted off her forehead and joined the rest of her blazing, cherry hair blowing back in the headwind. Through the glass pane, the ship's captain stood with their arms folded, an expression of impatience on their face. "Foot pedal, on the left. Push it." The captain's voice remained calm. Ilo's toes touched the lever under her foot slip. She pushed. Stinging pain surged up her leg. Nothing moved. Whatever she injured in the fall from the balcony wasn't responding, and the taser shot had numbed the muscles. "Push it," the captain repeated. Ilo's eyes went wide. Her stomach dropped, and with it, her cockiness and attitude. She shook her head as the window neared. The captain's expression shifted, realizing this wasn't a refusal, but communication of futility. They dove to the ground. Ilo shut her eyes. It didn't help. The speeder struck the glass, and her world shattered.